Today, we want to talk to you about toe spacers.
They are some of my favorite things.
They really are. We've had to pry them off Dr. Conley's feet at a certain point. So toe spacers are a really wonderful tool that's affordable, that's easy to use, that is great for improving your overall foot health and stability. So let's talk a little bit about why spreading the toes and creating more forefoot splay is important in the function of the foot.
When we're walking, the foot should what we call pronate or lengthen and widen. And when it does that, the forefoot splays. And there's a reason we need that when we're moving. When we push off, when we're walking, there is a lot of loads, many times our body weight going through our forefoot. So the forefoot has to be wide, it has to be stable, and it has to be strong. If you were to imagine taking this foot and pushing off with a rubber band wrapped around the toes, this is what most narrow toe box shoes will do to the foot. You're going to be pushing off in an unstable environment. So when we allow the toes to splay, we're creating an environment for the foot where it can function more efficiently.
We have a built-in mechanism inside our foot called the tie bar mechanism. And what that is it's basically a T that crosses across the ball of the foot. So we have our deep transverse intermetatarsal ligament that goes right across the ball of the foot, and it ties directly into the plantar fascia that goes back towards the heel. Now, when we bring the foot down to the ground and we see that spreading of the toes and the forefoot, that's what creates tension across those tissues in a good way. We want tension because that's what creates stability. So it starts to spread, we start to get tension across the plantar fascia, and then we get nice muscle contraction of the 4 layers of muscles underneath the feet to help us propel forward.
So when we don't take advantage of that, or we prevent the forefoot from being able to splay, you're just making it more difficult on yourself, and it's also setting us up for dysfunction in the foot, which will eventually lead to pain.
So what we find with many of our patients is that after wearing restrictive footwear, and this is most modern day footwear that has a toe box that is tapered. And what that's going to do is, like Dr. Conley said, it's going to bring those toes together. It's going to create slack and instability at that forefoot so we don't have a great push-off position. And over time, those tissues can become tight. So when you look down at your foot, if you see that your toes are more narrow than the ball of your foot, then using toe spacers may be a great tool to help restore the spreading of the foot. Another great test that you can do is lifting up the toes, spreading them out, and seeing if you can spread those toes out wide. And again, if you can't, that may be another indicator that using toe spacers could be a great tool to help improve your function.
It's really interesting. Often you will see some people that can just move their big toe or just spread their little toe. And the toes in the middle, 2, 3, and 4, there won't be any splay there. That is a foot that needs to improve its function. Those patients often sometimes can present with things like neuromas or pain along the forefoot because they just don't have that splay at push-off.
Other people who may benefit from the toe spacers are also patients or people who have hallux valgus or bunions. So when the big toe starts to deviate towards the other toes, and we see that metatarsal drifting outwards. So using toe spacers can be a way to help improve the alignment of the big toe with that first metatarsal, and also kind of act like a bowling bumper, if you will. So when you start to move, when you notice if you have bunions, the big toe will want to move towards the other toes when you're actually using it. So having a toe spacer there can kind of act as a guide rail that keeps you from diving further towards those other toes, keeping that big toe in better alignment as you go to push off and put your body weight through that joint.
It is the reason why I started wearing these. It's wild to me. I've been wearing them for so long, 5 years, and I still wear them consistently because of the alignment of what it does to my first ray or my big toe. It is very important that we have stability of that joint so that we can create efficiency and decrease pain.
So if you are new to toe spacers, keep in mind these can be uncomfortable. So there is definitely a break-in process. I've heard Dr. Conley say 1,000 times when she first started wearing these, she wore them for 10 minutes and wanted to throw them across the room.
We need to get a little uncomfortable to get comfortable.
Exactly.
Right? If you have a foot that's weak and your toes can't splay and you're putting something in between the toes are going to rub together. You might form a callus or a corn on the inside of the toes. Just note that this is part of your foot beginning to change. The toes are going to not be able to splay well initially, but as you continue to wear them and your foot starts to change shape and your foot starts to get stronger, then the 10 minutes turns into 30 minutes, which then turns into an hour, which then turns into you can wear them all day and you can even run in them if you want to. I do.
So a good starting plan is starting with that 10-minute mark and kind of seeing how you feel. If your toes are starting to get achy, if they really are very uncomfortable, if you're feeling kind of that stretching in the skin, go ahead and take them off. That's totally fine. We're going to build up a few minutes at a time, but also keep in mind that you can do that multiple times per day. So let's say you do 10 minutes in the morning while you're getting ready, you do 10 minutes on your lunch break, and then 10 minutes in the evening while you're cooking dinner or moving around the house. Now you've accumulated 30 minutes throughout that day versus if you just did it once and you only had that 10 minutes. And then like Dr. Conley said, you can absolutely start to increase incrementally a few minutes at a time until you get to a point where you can wear them throughout your day. You can wear them in a shoe that fits properly, which we'll get to next, but also you can start to do your favorite activities in them, and you can even be like Dr. Conley and run a half Ironman in them.
When we pick the right footwear, this is very important, because patients will get the toe spacers and then they'll continue to wear the shoes that they have been wearing. We cannot stress this enough. There is a difference between a wide shoe and a wide toe box shoe. The width of the shoe must extend into the toes. The widest part of our foot should be our toes. So if you're going to wear a toe spacer and you're going to put your foot back into most conventional or traditional footwear, it's going to enclose or make the forefoot feel even tighter. So it is imperative that you do your research. We have a bunch of all of our shoes, by the way, on our website. We have our favorite products. They are all compatible with the toe spacers. So they are all, the width extends into the toes. So those shoes, you have a green light to start wearing the toe spacer for.
So the reason why we like the Gait Happens toe spacers, besides the fact that they're ours, right? The reason we actually chose this shape of toe spacer is because we wanted something flat that isn't going to restrict your movement, but also that can be worn when you're on your feet. Because it's one thing to wear toe spacers when you're sitting on the couch or watching TV, you're gonna get that passive spreading. But when you then pair that with actually being on your feet where you're moving around, now we get that proper alignment of the toes when we're actually putting weight through our foot. So you get a much bigger impact when you wear them when you're on your feet versus if you wear them when you're off your feet.
You always want to make things functional. So when we can start to implement things like toe spacers with walking and exercise, when you're in the gym and you're lifting, wide forefoot, more stability. This is always going to create an environment where you can feel strong and stable from the ground up. Our Gait Happens toe spacers also can be customized. So there's a QR code in the packaging. If you need to cut it a certain way to make it fit a little bit better, these are all options available to you in the packaging.
One thing to note is when you are ordering your toe spacers, we do recommend if you're floating between, let's say, a size small and a size medium, always tend towards the smaller size, because if you get a toe spacer that's too large, it can not only be uncomfortable, but they can start to slide off as well. We can also add, like Dr. Courtney said, modifications like adding cork into the holes between the first and second toe or the fourth and fifth toe to make them fit a little bit better as well. So there are definitely ways that we can improve the fit of the toe spacer.
Make sure when you have the toe spacer on as well, most of the time when we use the cork, it goes in between 1 and 2. Very rarely will we put cork in between 4 and 5, because if it takes the little guy and points him outward, it's too much abduction. So make sure that the toes are in their appropriate alignment.
And if you have any questions along the way, our team is very happy to help. So please send us an email to info@gaithappens.com.